So, Mama, in 15 minutes or less, what's new with the library?
Well, I'm going to make one quick, by God's good grace, deviation here. And although I have a feeling everybody who is part of your group knows the library, a quick explanation of what it is. The Carter Johnson is a compilation of my obsession, which is the easiest way to explain this. It is a kink collection of our history. And I use the term kink rather than leather because leather is the umbrella term, but it is far more than just leather. It is things that can be fetishized, like we have books on tickling fetish or magazines on tickling fetishes. We look for the paper of a lot of the things that are coming out, like the new pup magazine called Barking News, or things about our boot blacks. So it is a compilation of what this tribe is, rather than just thinking in terms of traditional leather. It started almost 30 years ago with some of our kinklings in Oklahoma who made me realize that my old stuff was actually their history. And they were the ones who made me save it so that I could bring it home to them and to my club brothers, because I'm a charter member of a group called TULSA. And Tulsa still exists. Well, those trips began to multiply and the few boxes began to become more boxes, and the more boxes got pregnant and exploded and had babies. And it got to the point where it was occupying its own storage unit. And I was doing a program, a class called Leather History Show and Tell. And this was back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I was asked if I would put everything in the back of a van and bring it to an event, which I did. In doing so, I realized how much of it there actually was. We set it up in a room, and basically the library was born. Its mission was and still is to bring history to the communities that we serve. But as it grew, Dr. Gail Rubin, who is a friend of mine, climbed up my and down my throat and said, no one is ever going to believe all of the amazing things you own until you have a building. That happened 3 years ago. And then the next building, as many of you saw on the tour, happened a year after that. And then if you were to actually see what the inside of my workroom looks like, or my garage, or my bookcases upstairs, and you realize that there's a whole third building just here that hasn't, my neighbors all worry because they start seeing me looking at their houses and realizing I'm going to try and throw them out. Mostly because I have no shame. And I need this space more.
Mama, you got muted by accident.
So it expands whenever the old lady finds something interesting, or I go running off down a rabbit hole. Now, speaking of rabbit hole, the question was, what's new in the library? A couple of things came in this morning. This delightful, innocuous little book, Lettuce, from Alice B. Toklas, which most of you know, if only from Woody Guthrie's song about Alice's Restaurant, and her lover, to a man named Samuel Stewart. But most people don't realize that Samuel Stewart wrote under another name and wrote a lot of gay male leather fiction. So if a Leatherman from the 20s, 30s, actually 40s and 50s, was writing a series of letters when people still wrote them, back and forth to Alice B. Toklas and Gertrude Stein. I'm about to read this thing, if only to find out whether or not those two lovely lesbians were as kinky as old lamb's wool. So this came in today. A second copy of this little wonder came in today. And this adorable little 1903 piece is called The Horn Book. Now, the purpose of this adorable little manual was to teach a girl how to have sex, including, gift from mother to daughter, how to give a blowjob. Wonderful little piece will be ultimately going next to the authentic Shunga in the rare book room. And since when I finally got to look this thing up, to keep it center, and realized that there are only 4 of them for sale in the world, I bought one and another one is on its way. That's new in the library.
You own half of them.
This is what arrived by mail. What was delivered, and yes, we're about to go off on another quick squirrel because otherwise it would make no sense. What was delivered was a box of the work of Larry Townsend.
Ooh.
Did I mention a box of the work of Larry Townsend? So far, we have about 30 of these pamphlets. We may have the only complete collection of Townsend's work in existence. Once we get these cataloged, we will have a conversation with Jack Fritzer, and that's another story. But by way of explanation for how this happened, many of you are familiar with the name Tony DeBlas. Tony was the man who designed the leather pride flag. Tony was the publisher of Drummer and Mock and so on. His partner, Andrew Charles, was the owner of the company. Tony and Andrew were lovers for almost 20 years. There is a lot about Dr. Anthony F. DeBlas that makes him a remarkable man, not just because of leather, but because he was a double PhD in mammalogy and worked with bats. His favorite was the name of his publishing company. And I could go on for hours about my relationship with Tony. Tony was married to Andrew and passed away just about 20 years ago. Andrew, a few years later, remarried their best friend, a man named Tom Butts. Andrew died, leaving all of both men's personal paperwork to Tom. As Tom downsized from Tony and Andrew's dream house, which was about 10,000 square foot, to his own 3,000 square foot home, a lot of things, as you can guess, went into storage. As he is now, because almost 10 years have passed since Andrew's death, and he can love the memories, but now pass them on. He's beginning to pass them on to us. So an 18-inch by 18-inch box was brought to us that had the complete works of Larry Townsend. And when I opened them, I opened some of them yesterday and looked at the second package within the box of some of them today and realized as we're putting them back in both numerical and title order and year order, because Tony was one of the publishers, it may be the only complete set of Larry Townsend's work in existence. So that's what else has shown up at the library. There are a few other things, but Shar is trying to keep me something vaguely resembling on time. So I
You got
thought
5 more minutes.
Oh, really? Okay,
Don't
so
tell her that.
let's, okay, so we put these over here, and then we go to,
Very quickly, we have a video unboxing one of those boxes from Tom Butts that will be coming up on the YouTube channel in the future.
and so I will go to something else that was in that box. This Drummer magazine is actually before the leather time period of most of you, because Drummer went out of business about 20 years ago, give or take. When the magazine was at its height for Leatherman, it also produced a contest, and Mr. Drummer became the poster boy of sorts for Drummer magazine. He appeared as first as a cover and then a centerfold, and he was expected to write columns about all the places that he visited and so on and so forth. Programs for Drummer are very rare. And some of the other things that were in that box were programs from the early contests. And as I opened these yesterday and realized that at a point I had to stop because I was remembering so many of the men who were in these, I became overcome with emotion, because yesterday was also World AIDS Day. And so many of the men who are in these pages who competed for Drummer were lost to that plague. And I knew far more of them and went to far more of their funerals, and I know Pandora would understand this, than I can even recall now. And opening these treasures on World AIDS Day rattled my cage a bit as I sat and fell all over Amnesia Lane with my twin, Judy Tallwing. Squirrel, you're stuck with another quick story. Some of you heard me say that Judy and her partner Jay and 2 of her pups are stuck here with me until the end of next week. Oh, but I jokingly say my twin because Judy and I share a birthday. We were both born, Judy is 5 years my senior. We were both born on June the 18th. So we are 2 Geminis who were born on the same day. So we've got, twins inside of us running all over the place. And since we share so many of the same experiences with all of the same friends, sitting and remembering, and as I said, stumbling all over Amnesia Lane was quite the emotional day for me. So let me see now. I think I just ran, let me see what I'm supposed to be doing next. I just hit my 15-minute time, right?
Yes, we need to move on if we can.
So what's book of the month? Where are you? Here we are. I wanted to, in many ways, show you the book that started all of this and tell you a story about this beautiful missive. And hopefully you can see the cover.
Tilt it just a little bit, Mama.
Here?
Give it a little forward and top to bottom. There you go.
Here?
Yep. Okay.
This beautiful piece is a numbered tome from a publishing house in long gone from the United States. You can see on the frontage page that it talks about the rarity of this and how many copies were printed. But rather than starting with something more modern, I wanted to start with this one first because this book, about 16 years ago, is what took grandmom's obsession to a full-board library. And what had happened was, Willow Grove, as Pandora knows, when Jill and I still lived on the East Coast, was one of the first 5 towns wired for high-speed internet. We were an experiment 20 some odd years ago, which meant in this brand new baby called eBay, I had a faster connection than most of the people in North America at the time. A book came up for sale that I wanted to show for show and tell. I wanted to be able to explain to the tribe what a numbered book looked like, and then tell the story of why the book had a number. And that's a story for another time. So the book came up on eBay, and I didn't bid because I was afraid someone might outbid me and I would have no more money. So I waited until the last 7 seconds, and I sniped the person who was trying to buy the book. Snipe meaning he didn't have time to put in a bid behind me. I won this book, did the happy dance. It came in at a price that I could afford. Now, in the early days of eBay, buyers and sellers could talk to each other. Hell, we could all talk to each other. It wasn't a problem. So in talking to the man who was bidding against me for this book, we got into a wonderful conversation about books. I thought I had found someone who could help me find rare erotica for the tribe in a price that I could afford. He thought I was like him. He was part of a cell, not my term, his, being paid by the Christian right to find what they did not approve of and burn it. Now, I could get into long discussions and climb up on a soapbox so tall, you'd have to look up at me about what I think of book burners. Many have heard me say I wouldn't use Mein Kampf for toilet paper, but I wouldn't let you burn it either. Burning a book is just, and like I said, I'm going to say off that soapbox. 0 to pissed off, I guarantee it speeds it could rewrite Einstein. I thought that was the end of it until about a month later, when I was down in Atlanta for an event called Self. And a young man asked if he could speak to me. The short story was that there had been a book burning in front of his store, and he wanted to close down because he was afraid for his clients. I talked him out of it. I'd just been hit in the heart twice, went up to my hotel room and had a screaming match with God, and swore that day that if I could steal it, beg it, borrow it, hawk it, swap out paying the bills to get it, you don't get to burn it on my watch. The library's logo is Never Again Landfill, which has to do with the AIDS crisis. Never Again Flames, which is our nod to Kristallnacht. And I thought that was all it would ever be until about 3 weeks ago, when the first Board of Education suggested not removing books, but burning them. 2 other boards of education have clocked in to say the same thing, that their children should not be exposed to history. That I'm trying to think of some of the titles they want taken out, they want burned. One is the story of the Little Rock Nine. One is the story of the 4 little girls who were killed in the 16th Street bombing. And one is the story of Ruby, and I can't even remember the child's last name, who at 6 years old integrated the Arkansas public schools. Now, she had, there weren't state troopers the National Guard around her to get her to and from school for the first year. And her story was written as a children's story to other children.
Yeah, that was in the news recently, I think.
And it is deemed unfit for 10 to 12-year-olds and should be burned. Now, my attitude is if a 6-year-old can go through it, a 10-year-old should be able to read about it. But I promised I would stay off that soapbox. But as I sit here talking to you all now, the forces are gathering to destroy the evidence of who we are. Because once book burning starts, it's a very difficult thing, like a group gang mentality in a fight. It's a very difficult thing to stop because the mob madness starts to feed into it. I can't remember the historian who came out a few days ago with a statement that said he feared that within 20 years, our only accurate history will be in the minds of the elders who lived it. And once they are destroyed, history will be manipulated to please the patriarchy. Now that means who we are, unless we protect the history of who we are, becomes marshmallow fodder. And I needed to put that out to all of you in this first time that we are together, to make all of you realize that your stories, your stuff, your memorabilia is what our future generations will be holding on to. That which is in your head and on your shelves will be what encourages some person who has only dreamed of leather to come out because you told them a story and you made their wildest fantasy real in a way that means they're not sick. They're not degenerate. They're good, honest, hardworking people who have made a conscious choice to love differently. And that is what books give us. This is where I started.
That's the book that started it all?
Yes. This is where I started. Some of you started with A Man and a Maid, or The Story of O, or 1,000 Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns, or 1,000 amazing books that are out now. They're your starting point. Hold them, love them, share them, so that they don't get to burn them. Okay, on to my next soapbox. Where am I? Did I do it well? Am I still on schedule? What happened?
We are fine on schedule.
Still got like 12 minutes.
Yes.
Look at you go.
I'm actually on time for once. See, I told you I could keep the squirrels to a minimum.
6 minutes, actually, but okay.
My bad.
Drug of choice.
Welcome, everybody that's joined us in the last little bit. Mama is telling us about her book of the month, which she just showed us, which was the book that started the crazy that became the Carter Johnson Librarian Collection.
And now, let me see now. Room. Featured room in the annex.
Oh, now you're getting ahead.
And wait a minute, hold on. Let me check.
Are you done with the book?
Yes. Right on top.
Let's do a feature a room that we didn't do a video on recently.
Let's see. Did we talk? We talked about the. Now let's start at the beginning. Most of you have seen the walkthrough of the two houses. Let me explain how that happened before I talk about the first room. Having Dr. Rubin in my ears going, you need a place to put it. You have to have a place to put it. Why? You have to have a place to put it. I was thinking of something that would ultimately have been a glorified storage room. So I was looking around in the neighborhood where Boy Robbie and Jack were already living and where I had a small house that my cousin was staying in. A house across the street came up for sale in a foreclosure, needed a little work. I was going to help a family member get it. And ultimately, they ended up going back east. We looked at the size of the house and I said, Robbie, this is bigger than the house that you bought. Why don't you help me fix it up? And then you and Jack move over there. We would essentially trade houses. And Boy Robbie's house is in the video. It is the very, very big white Victorian cottage. So ultimately, that's what we did. We traded houses. And as we began to pull things out of the storage units so that we could at least not pay the storage fee, it kind of began to take on a personality of its own. A little bit of art went on the walls. I was scouring Goodwill, and all thrift stores are Goodwill to me because only Gentiles pay retail. And I couldn't afford to. Let's face it, bookcases are expensive, especially if they're actually going to hold books. One of my leather nieces said, so Mom, what do you need? I need bookcases. Well, how many? A lot. But the hitch is they couldn't be the laminates. They actually had to be wood because of the weight of everything we would be carrying. So she found some beautiful bookcases at IKEA, one of the few that IKEA makes that actually is solid wood, and they only do 2. And she sent me a picture and said, will this work? And I read the description and I said, yes, and they're beautiful. So she asked me to measure 2 walls, which I did, and sent them off. And she said, on the way back to you are 6 bookcases plus 2 for one of the bedrooms. Wow. The bookcases arrived. I had found an old desk, solid wood, and I had found also an old CD. Yes, we still use them. A bookcase where people would store videos and CD. So that went on one wall, a couple of chairs from, another thrift store. And then the boys got together and had an assembly party. The room looked pretty good. Found a little, used rug and some lamps and things, and started taking 30 boxes of books and putting them on the shelves. And as we arranged things, I was talking to my leather niece's mother. We got to meet only one time. Name was Laura Devers. And by the end of our hours and hours long conversation, we not only could finish each other's sentences, we pretty much knew each other's thoughts and had been convinced that we had been sisters in another life. And since I wanted to name each of the rooms in the library after someone that meant a great deal to me, I started with that one. And I took a picture of Laura that I had and put it on one of the shelves and made a sign that said, my sister's reading room. Now, in that room, which is the first room you see when you come into the library, with the desk and the 2 overstuffed chairs and bookcases all over the place, the room itself houses our more modern writers. That's where you would find some of Laurie Antonou's work, or the Beauty series, Bob Rubel, for those who know him, a lot of the how-tos. Our modern authors are all there. And when the local Munch group meets, And they're in both buildings once a month. It's the place where everybody just grabs the newest book that's popped up on somebody's mentioning list. They'll come to the library and they'll just sit and read, take their own private bookmarkers, put them in the pages, or ask if they can borrow a book, and just hang out and read in my sister's reading room. And when you see the video, you have a better idea of that. The bookcases, the rug, the bookcase against the wall that has a lot of our serial books, like the Gore series, the F.C. Campbell series, a lot of the book series that I was reading in the 70s and 80s when I was a kinkling. They're all there, as well as a lot of our modern publications. So that is what you would find in the first room that greets you, which is my sister's reading room.
Groovy. Mama, you're just knocking it out of the park. We're ahead of schedule now.
Yes.
Do
Okay.
you have any squirrels?
Well, hopefully everyone has kind of seen the video so that as I describe this, you have some idea of what I'm talking about. The desk has its back to the window. And the first bookcase, which seems to be the one everybody gravitates to, is the bookcase right by my desk. That bookcase, which is pretty chocked, is full of books from authors that I know. So Laurie's series is there, Bob Rubel's series is there, Cecilia Tan's series is there, Marco Vassi, whose name that most of you have never heard of, Marco's series is there, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of those are sprinkled all over the rest of the room, as well as a lot of dissertations. Some of the library's dissertations and theses are also there. But it seems like of all of the bookcases, everyone wants to go to Mom's bookcase. I'm not quite sure what draws them. A lot of the books there on that case have been autographed to me. But it's 3 foot wide by 6 shelf high wall of memories for me. Remembering either when they came out or how they got them published, or discussions that we had had before the book's final editions and so on. So all of that is on that one bookcase. And there are other things tucked in and around, as well as some of the new Taschen well, not new, but some of Taschen's publications, when Taschen was still putting out a lot of the reprints of the early books that were part of this tribe's history. Books like a reprint of the Physique Pictorial magazine, or a reprint of Jean Bilbroux's Exotique magazine. All of these are fabulous because it guarantees these treasures from the 40s and 50s can never be lost. But if you pick up Taschen's reprint and then walk down the hall to the Tony DeBlas magazine room, you will find the originals of those Taschen prints in there. And having the Taschen in your collection, being able to hold an original with the love, the vibrations, the feelings of the first owners, even better.
Excellent.
Yes.
I don't know what to do with you being ahead of schedule.
I'm trying to behave myself first time around.
I think what we'll do is we will have more time for questions at the end, which will make everybody happy. And we'll give everybody some extra time to spend with Mama, and maybe we'll get to open up some chat. Do you have an annex update for us today?
Well, right now, one of the heads of the annex of the one of the annexes, which in this case is Seattle, is here. CC Clark, back up. First squirrel. Once upon a time, in the younger years of the library, a woman named Jezebel Chiarda, who many of you know is the partner of Kiki Stills, was at a library event with us, and she had helped us put up, and now she was helping us, knock down the library so we could get it into the van and take the baby back and put it in its cradle. So she's packing books that were not being packed in the right order. And that's kind of important when it goes back into a storage unit, because we had to be able to find it. So she's packing all of these books into a box it didn't belong in. And she starts to pick up the books, not put them on the trolley, but walk out with them. And it's like, Jazz, where are you going? And she looks up at me with this smiling face and goes, your sons in Atlanta need this, and proceeds to walk out with a box of books. Now, I'm an indulgent parent. So she comes back in and she starts packing another box, and a lot of my gay male fiction is now in the box. So she's packing all of this up, and I'm going, oh, where are you going? And the next box walks out.
Mama, you might want to be careful. God is over here taking notes on how to get your library collection.
Whoops.
So just come in with a box, take what you need.
Now, hold on. That was the first one. We have not yet finished this story. So we get to the third box, and now boy Robbie is helping pack the box. And it's like, hold it. Let's talk about this. Robbie grins at me and says, I saw what she took. And then Robbie took the third box out. Now, about a week later, I get a hateful call from Rick Newton Treadway in Baltimore, who is going, you gave them what and I didn't get any?
You gave them what and I didn't get any? That's the...
Hey, this was years ago. Don't push your luck. And the next thing I know, the two of them, because they're also very good friends and consider each other siblings, are going at each other over mom likes you better than mom likes me. So all of a sudden, I have a little teeny annex in Atlanta. I've got Baltimore down my throat. And within 3 weeks of Atlanta, Baltimore got born with an I'm on my way to find out what you gave her and why I don't have it. We now have two. Kiki and Jez came up for Christmas and came to visit. And they were here with me for like a week and a half. And, we have fun, we have meals, we open presents, and then they went through my workroom. Now, I'm about to make all of you very either dizzy or nauseated or have you question my sanity.
Very slowly, and I would like to state that I would never take anything from the workroom.
What you're going to get is wet panties. She's just confused.
Now, this is not the library. This is where I work. Most of what's here, I'm either cataloging, don't have space for yet, or in all honesty, it is too fragile to move. But I have learned after the first two, and this story continues, if mom is going to buy a book, for those of you who can see behind me, you notice there are triplicates, duplicates, even quadruplicates, because my children roll through this room the same way Sherman rolled through Atlanta. With, oh, but mom, there's two. Oh, that's for me, isn't it? No, rotten child. So now we are up to two. at the Master Slave Conference, and I'm going back 6 years ago at this point. Master Jeb and some friends and Jeff Tollerson and a few others from Texas who had come up went, wait a minute, you still claim to be an Okie, and there's no library in the Oklahoma, Texas region. What did we do wrong? You see how this story is going? So we, got it together, and in the process of beginning to do Texas, so now we're up to 3, we began to lay out a basic format for what goes in a Carter Johnson, which is something that I had honestly never thought about because I had never thought there would be annexes. The following year, again at the Master Slave Conference, a lovely young thing spent almost the entire 4 days in the library, an exchange student by the name of Ling Tai. And she was an exchange student here from Singapore. And during the course of our getting to know each other over those 4 days, she talked about the fact that the students at the university, about 30 of them, had gotten together to form a very, very, very underground SM group. And they had almost 30 books. And oh my God, they would die to be in the library that we set up for MSC. So we talked, and I said, so what is it you need? Because this is Singapore, whatever your base language is, which I think is Mandarin, I'm not really sure. All of you are fluent in English, but that doesn't mean everybody is. And she talked about all the things she needed. Well, boy, Robbie said, how big is your suitcase? She brought her suitcase down. The boy found a box that fit into it perfectly. We filled it with some of the duplicates that we brought with us, hurried to a computer, got on Google Docs, thank God they know how to do it, downloaded about 50 of the library dissertations onto thumb drives, packed her suitcase, and sent her home. About a week after that, I got an email from the librarian, because it was a true floating library in that it was never with the same person for more than 60 days. So whoever had it knew who they got it from, and in their mind knew who they were going to give it to, but that was all they had in case something happened and they got busted. So this letter comes in with this email that says, why would you do this for us? And I said, I'm not sure I understand the question. Well, you don't know us. And my response was, do I need to? I have something you need. Technically, I'm your kinky grandmother. Why wouldn't I share it? So once the current librarian got over the initial shock and finally believed this was not some kind of weird setup to get them into trouble, because it was quite possible. The sentence for this was pretty stiff. There were a number of exchange students here from that university in and around the United States, most on the West Coast. They set up 2 post office boxes. And I wrote all of the authors that I knew, said, send books to this address, send me the bill. And every time one was about to go home, they would stop at the post office box, grab 5 or 6 books, put them in their luggage. They just looked like textbooks. They were never enough to be intimidating. Now, I say all of that to say, 2.5 years later, that frightened group of 30 put on their first SM conference for 200. Now we're up to Boston came chiming in, and Boston is the home of a lot of wonderful SM groups, as well as a lot of SM cases, the most famous of which is Attleboro. And if you don't know the legal case, you should look it up. It changed a lot of SM law. And the young lady whose home was raided that night had the courage to stand up to the police and willingness to go to court rather than betray her friends. Stephen said, we've got Cecilia Tan, we have all of these publishing companies, Raven Caldera and Joshua are up there, and so on. We want a Carter Johnson. Okay? Each annex develops its own personality. They consider themselves the rebels because, of course, they're the cradle of liberty. And they do it over a 7-course dinner because Stephen is a master chef. The Northwest, Cecile, I hear you. Yes. Come here, darling. I'm about to put you on the spot. Why? Because I can. Unfortunately, when you're a menuensis, oh, here's Robbie. Come here, baby boy. Don't bump anything. When I talk about the wind beneath the library's wings.
Boy.
Oh.
And he's still staying with mom
Robbie.
because he decided to replace a body part. And I want to make sure he's safe.
Hi.
Until he feels well enough to go home. And that's when I say he's well enough to go home, and he ain't there yet. But now, talking about annexes. Now, they're all considered siblings. But the youngest of them is
You're frozen up
probably
by.
the most.
Okay. Give it just a second, Mom. I think you froze up a little bit. I thought it was me.
And because the person who has that annex is also my amanuensis, which is assistant or clerk for a librarian. It's wonderful, and I love it.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Mama got a little bad internet there, it looked like, for just a second. I thought it was me. I'm on Wi-Fi, but Char will get her hooked back up. Everybody enjoying themselves? I hope everybody is. We put these together so that we could keep everybody updated on the library and get more people excited about it. I'm glad to hear that there's some of that here tonight. I don't know if their internet just went down or what. Probably because their internet's down. We must have lost Mama's internet. Maybe the modem will just reset. She'll be right back. Everybody, I shared the link in the chat for the walkthrough video that Mama was talking about. So you'll have that later. You might want to click it and open it. Of course, when we close down the Zoom meeting, you'll lose the chat. So if you want to click on that, open it up so you've got it later if you want to watch it. It includes both buildings, and we walk through each room, and Mama gives us an overview of each room as we walk through it, tells you about it. And then we have some individual rooms that we've already filmed. A couple of those are up on the YouTube channel right now. And then we have some unboxings that we filmed that will be going up, and we'll be adding on to those as we go along.
Shall we try this crap again?
Did you lose internet?
I'm not sure what the heck happened, Matt. There we go.
We lost you just about the time you said the youngest annex.
Okay, why can't I get this video open?
You take your
Sean,
time.
make it behave.
She's working on it. She's stepped away for just a second.
Failed to start the video camera. Please select another video camera. I don't have another video camera.
Oh, no.
Mostly because even if I did, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Okay, so I guess I continue this until Shar can spank this computer. Failed to start the whoosy with the what's its. I have not a clue.
Yeah, she tried to log in, and I think your internet, whatever was blinking there, it wouldn't let her through. So now that you're back up, so we'll see if we can get her in.
So the rotten child, the youngest sibling of all of them, is run by my amanuensis. Now, that's a problem for all of the other siblings because she's here far more often than most are. As a result, she sees what comes in before everybody else does and goes, Mom, I never saw that. Or, gee, where did that come from? And, oh, my, we need that in Seattle. And since every annex has a different personality, Seattle has chosen to spend more time with graphic novels and comics and things that are very much geared for the younger generation. So that is their personality. Because, oh, there's my Shar. Let's see what she can do with this mess. Because the technical baby of the group is the leather annex. But since they're not dealing with books, they fall into a category all of their own. So reclaim car is not your reclaim, do whatever it is you're supposed to be doing, baby.
Yep. And if I can have just a second there, I have changed my video and you will see the CJLC leather annex logo.
Yes.
And we do books. Mama just is not convinced that we do books. So we're not doing all the books.
All of the types of books, correct.
Correct. We are focused primarily on actual physical leather, which, as most people know, is very difficult to archive and maintain. So it started off with taking care of the bootblack in the house, who's currently trying to get the computer back up, saw Mom's closet, and we were almost accosted on the way out the door from a visit because somebody in the house was convinced we were stealing all of Mom's leather, when in fact we were just taking it home to love it and care for it and bring it back.
Bingo.
And that turned into, this place needs some place to live where it's loved and cared for. So the physical leather accoutrement is here and loved and cared for.
Now,
Some of
by
it.
way of explanation, the library is a paper chaser. That is predominantly our focus. Leather requires its own constant care. And for good or ill, it doesn't travel well. So there are a number of pieces that we have in the collection that are the property of family members. We still get to show them, but we work very hard to only take the leather of family. But with the annex, we now have the option to bring in the leather of members of the community, find out what the story is about these pieces, like we did with Gwen Hardy. Record the piece, record the story, and in many cases, pass that piece of leather on. And when we do, we're passing on not just the leather itself, but we're also passing on the history that goes with it. So when the recipient is ready to pass it on, they add their story to that story, and then it goes forward again. So now that you have the story of all of the annexes. Update. Because it took a while, I figured this is the first one. I better explain what the annexes are.
I love that we seem to be doing the first episode. We're just kind of doing the how everything got started so everybody knows what they are and what they exist.
Yes, so that we can bring it up to date of sorts.
Should we touch on where the physical library is?
Wait a minute, I've got one more annex update.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In about 2 weeks, there is a delegation from Colorado that is due out here. 5 members of one particular leather club are coming out to spend a 4-day weekend with me and at the library because they want a Carter Johnson. And this will be the first time, as much as I enjoy the company of the members of the club, that an annex has ever been let out of the family, so to speak. So they're coming up to find out what they want to get themselves into, because they really do need to understand this isn't all, it's not only a dedication. Yes, it's also an awful lot of work. Because once you accept an annex, you accept the fact that you are in service to your community, both as the community's historians of sorts, and explaining that it is a library and not a museum, in that it is a living thing. And in becoming a living thing, we will constantly add to it. We add what the next generation is reading. We add what they're writing. The center has a game room. So if you're playing kinky games, whether they be video or card games, we want them. That is part of who we are. And that is part of what the next generation relates to. So they will be coming in to spend a weekend learning not just about the library, but learning about what it will take to be an annex. And if after everything that they have seen and learned, etc., and I told them I do not want an instant reaction. I want, now that you've seen it, I want you to go and discuss away from me. Evaluate it, think about it, because it is work. You take on also the role of teacher and encourager and heart for your community. So all of that is part of being a Carter Johnson. So that is the last library update. Now, where was we?
We're interrupting for a second.
Mhm.
Something happened when you reloaded. I cannot, I can't get your camera back up. I have no idea what Zoom is doing.
And
it doesn't think
can't
you have a
figure it out,
camera. So what I would do is shut it down and reopen it.
because if you can't figure it out, nobody can.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Okay, give me 30 seconds to drop it, rock it, and pop it. Don't go anywhere.
You have the link handy?
Sure, are you in control of this so I can get out of this meeting and get back in?
Yeah.
Okay, be back in a second.
All the power is mine.
If anybody is not 100% familiar with Mama, technology is out to get her. She has thingamajigs and whoosy whatsits, and she can't make them connect when they need to connect, etc. So she has help. Well, she made it back in quick. Oh.
I don't get what's happening here.
Me either. And I honestly don't know enough about Zoom to. Okay, you keep talking. I'll dig around some more.
That
Yeah.
might require a reboot.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
A
Whatever.
complete system reboot?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it might. I've got one more thing I can look at, and
It's
we'll see
probably
if
a
that
beta
works.
it's probably
Is
a beta
everybody-
driver.
Is everybody okay with just hearing Mama for the remainder?
Because I'm afraid if I reboot, I lose the group.
No, I've got the group. I'm hosting it right now.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no settings right here that I can change. So I've got nothing. So it's up
Whatever
to
you
you.
want to do, Mama.
I'm gonna get out of your
Ah.
computer so you can do your thing.
We, Kitty, we had I think she had an internet burp. And when she came back from that, Zoom's being funky.
the thing done farted somehow. Let me shut a few things down and hope that will help. I have no idea what my access was denied for.
It's not going to help the
It's
camera.
not going to. It doesn't recognize that you have a camera.
You probably have to reboot.
I'm shutting everything down so I can close. Give me 30 seconds.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, you're
You're like
still
way ahead of time, so you're fine.
you're still there. Okay. Why can I see you and you can't see me? All right. System reboot. I hate technology. Char, you know how much I hate this stuff.
I know. Just
We were just explaining it while you were away.
shut it down, start it back up.
Bye.
All right. Well, I
love
apologize,
technology.
everybody.
So much fun sometimes.
It's the internet. We get what we get sometimes. The next thing we've got coming up is we're going to be doing the calendar update so we can know where Mama's going to be showing up, where the library may be showing up or involved in. And then we will have questions for any bonus time we get until 11. So if you have questions, please PM them to Char and we will go through them at the end. We'll probably open up and let people interact as well, whoever asks the questions. So do we know how many annexes are there right now? I think there's
6
Nice.
or 7.
6 or 7. The one in Colorado.
There's a couple more that I'm not sure are actually annexes yet. Although they technically should be. There's the one in Puerto Rico. And the one in Singapore. There's one in London. Those two are I think they're annexes. I have spaces for them on the website, but I don't know.
And what's the website?
CarterJohnsonLibrary.com.
I'll link that too.
There's a PayPal button on there for those who want to donate and support the library. Unfortunately, I have been sick and came unprepared. I have no idea where to find that.
Or for us to post it tonight. We'll be ready with that
So-
next time. But everybody here, I think you can go to the CarterJohnsonLibrary.com and there is a link to the PayPal for donations on the
Yes.
website. So
There's
if you're feeling
also an
generous,
address if you want to send stuff.
yes, absolutely. And as you can see, Mama gets quite a bit of stuff.
Unless you ask her, and then she never gets enough stuff. There's never enough stuff. Ever. No, never enough stuff. What am I talking about? Oh. Apparently I need to talk. I'm no good at this. Somebody should unmute and talk to me. We can all watch the cat on his chair. It'll be fun. Hi, I'm the boot like you mentioned. I take care of the leather. I'm Char. I'm no good at this. I don't know. We could talk about definitions. That usually gets me in trouble. Or I would like to bring up something that I thought about while she was talking, and that I hope everybody will spread around to those around them. She was talking about the catchphrase for the library, never again, landfill, never again lanes. She didn't really explain what the never again landfill was. And the Never Again landfill was during the AIDS crisis. Gay men were dying so fast that nobody could protect their belongings, with a few exceptions. There were some glorious women that took care of the men that were dying when no one else would, buried them when no one else would. And on the few occasions that those men had family that would come in and take care of their stuff and bury them, they would clean out their houses of the artifacts from their kinky lifestyle, so that their family didn't find those things in an already very trying time. And, a lot of the people who did not have one of those very special women taking care of them, all of their artifacts went into the landfill. It got thrown into dumpsters as fast as they could shovel it, because everybody just went, oh, that's perverted. Oh, that's kinky. Oh, that's dirty. Oh, that's nasty. And it just went away. So a great deal of our history went into the trash. And so I try very hard to remind people when they're, I hear people going, well, I'm going to clean out my closet. Okay? And I remind them, okay, when you're cleaning out your closet, when you're cleaning out your desk, when you're cleaning out your bookshelves, when you're cleaning out your couch, whatever it is, okay, what history are you throwing away today? Keep that question in your mind at all times, because your history, the stuff you have right now, the stupid little slips of paper with Jerry was hot and a phone number on it, that doesn't mean anything to you now, because you don't remember who Jerry is. You found that slip of paper in the couch. You don't care. However, I have notebooks from Sir's collection that have, yay, we have 5 back, that have those stupid little slips of paper from the mine shaft in New York City.
Yep.
That stupid little piece of paper meant nothing to the man that owned it. It was a piece of paper that got dropped in the bottom of a box. But to us, there was a hot guy named Jerry in the bar that night, and there's his phone number. And it's just this thing that you can hold and go, that man is real.
And Shar, if you're not, one thing to add to that, your great
Yes,
point
please.
is if you're not out to your blood family that might take possession of your belongings.
Oh, yes.
It's a really good time to, while you're living and conscious and able to make decisions, is to have a kinky buddy in the community that will be your, I guess, your Facebook delete and your set life, cleaner upper and things like that, to be able to go in and take possession of your kink possessions, your books and your things like that, to not perpetuate things going to a landfill. Because still to this day, blood family does take our history.
And it goes to the landfill almost every time.
If I can pull back to 2006 real quick, Mama earlier said your papers, your items, and your history. And I would like to throw in a little plank from my title platform, the things that might be in your neighborhood. I found the mine shaft, the most notorious leather bar in the world, in New York City from 1976 to 1985, in an attic of a pink house in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2006. So you could have some massive treasures in your community. Just ask around. And Mama is back, yay, with video.
Shar spanked it. I turned it off, turned it back on. It misbehaved. I threatened to punch its little lights out, and then Shar did something, and now I'm back.
Yay. Did you have anything further on the annexes?
I heard the tail end of what was being said, and I agree with all of it.
Fantastic. Can you give us an update on the library and your calendar? Where might folks find you, or library things? Where are we going to be for the next month?
Let me see now. For the next month or so, people are coming here. As I said, Denver is making a trip here. In January, and this is going to be a first for us, In January, we're hosting a small scholars party. I get to be the fly on the wall and listen to 4 PhDs discussing kink history. We have, and once again, now we do the squirrel. There are a number of wonderful things that I always envisioned for the library as it grew. I didn't think a lot of them would happen in my lifetime. I thought they would be the products, created by Boy Robbie and the other directors who would be coming under him. But when we got the second building, I set aside one of the rooms as a bedroom rather than as another library room, because I had always envisioned having a place where a young scholar could come and literally live in the library, have the key to both buildings, and be able to just be there, to study, to curl up in the rare book room and read, to paddle back and forth barefoot in pajamas at 2:00 in the morning because you had a revelation. Or when the community had a guest, to be able to extend the library's hospitality, because that hospitality is very important to me. When I grew up, that's how community stayed together and how we helped each other. Why should you go to a hotel? If you don't mind something that's a little dormitory-like, because we haven't figured out how to decorate it yet, come stay in the library. Save the money. Be in the middle of family and enjoy yourself, read. So our first young scholar helped us work the bugs out, and that was Dr. Tony Celine. And since we started the program a little over a year ago, Tony has been in the library 3 times for a month at a time and has written 2 books there and done numerous podcasts. Now, off I went to the first event that I've been out to in a year and a half because God created crazy COVID. And we were at, the family went down to Women of Drummer. And, old lady got to be around the young energy, got to be around the energy of the soil, laugh in love with my next generation, and still be able to go back to my cabin and sleep because, see, column A, I'm old. But many of the wonderful women that I was talking to, we were just chatting, about my experiences and their experiences and people we knew alike, evidently then went running off to Dr. Celine because Tony is a PhD. And when Tony came back to me and said, "You remember the person you talked to?" Yes, she's a double PhD, one in literature and one in anthropology. And I picked my jaw up and said, wow. And by the way, she's working on her 3rd and wants to bring 2 other women, wants to come and spend some time in the library with 2 of her friends who are also PhDs. And I put the jaw back up again and went, wow. And then Tony said, as your senior scholar in residence, how about I pick your next generation of scholars? Sure. She said, then she came back to me and said, could we set up a slumber party? And I went, well, I have a fairly large home in terms of a guest room and a downstairs area that I converted into a small apartment. So we could probably sleep 7 people in here. And she said, no, not in your house, in the library. By the way, the library cat, sleep them in the library. And I'm going, could get a little crowded up in there. But as long as everybody wants to be friendly, we can do this. And she said, it will be the equivalent of a scholar's slumber party for 4 days. Cool.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I get to show 3, because Tony knows the library very well. I get to show 3 PhDs around the library and then sit in the corner with my thumb in my mouth and a good drink and listen to those 4 talking to each other. I think I died and went to heaven. So that's the next venture out for the library, which is actually a venture in.
You remember recently I was there, I followed you around doing this. Do you think you could? Do you think you could do that for those 4 days?
Well, I'm thinking if I can find a nice steady cam and just glue it right here, because putting it here makes that whole Cyclops thing very obvious. You know, could make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I am just so excited about this. And then in March, we have another small group of boot blacks coming here. In April, theoretically, I'm supposed to be somewhere the last week in April, assuming I don't lose my mind, because the entire month of May is blocked off for a family wedding. In June, the Atlanta Library is going to Southeast Leatherfest. And since this is Self's 25th, I think, 27th?
No, 2-5.
So it's their 25th anniversary, and I was at Self before it was Self. I was at Southeast Leather, and I was at Self 1. Going back and being there for the 25th is a way of honoring the man who originally did it. So I think I get a relative breather. That's my lie, I'm sticking to it. In July, and then in August, we have 2 events back to back, because Women of Drummer Regional is being held here in Evansville. And then we will be getting ready for an event at MSC that, assuming they can get what I need to put this together, will be unlike anything we have ever done, which is a library art show. The library has a tremendous amount of art that I have always wanted to show, more than just like 1 or 2 walls, which is common for the library when we set a library up. If they can get me the walls, we are going to be setting up a walkthrough gallery to have the work of the photographer Dark Desan, the work of the photographer Bob Neroni, the artwork of Rebecca Lockwood, the artwork of Danielle, because she's a young furry artist and I love furry art. An area of event posters that will highlight some of the larger events of this tribe's history, from living in leather forward. Another one that is just the posters of early blue movies. The original French poster, for instance, of The Story of O, or the poster of the original poster of L'Image. The wall poster of Cruising that was shown in Europe, because the American poster wasn't allowed to show anything. And a lot of the posters from Europe, I want to do a poster art. And then last but not least, do a special exhibit of the places where we've gathered, which is an exhibit of bar posters, before we set up the library on the other side of the room. So if they can get me the walls, because we're beginning to design now, we're going to be doing an art exhibit. And then last, and the one that's making me breathe deeply and have a drink every time I think about it, we have been asked by the Los Angeles Museum of Art to consider bringing an exhibit and a library to the museum for 6 weeks. The concept of that makes my knees shake. Because this isn't a step up in the library's game. This is like going from 0 to 2,486 with nothing in the middle. Because this one is museum quality. This isn't something we would set up for 3 or 4 days actually, and then take it down. This requires proper matting, proper framing, proper lighting, a very careful selection of books, not just for the art crowd, but for the intellectual crowd and the academic crowd. And every time I even begin to think of it, I start biting my fingernails down to my wrist. I'm letting the next generation deal with it because they were the two that started talking to each other. I will guide the curating of it and probably either fly or drive in to be its storyteller. But the concept of what it's going to take to do this to my standards, oi. So that's about it for the year. That's more than enough to make me neurotic. And that's before we begin to talk about all of the people who are beginning to journey to the library. Oh, and I forgot, sometime in April, I've got a group of 10 coming in here from the East Coast.
Cool.
Slumber party time.
A couple things. This is the album I forgot to bring you. You mentioned cruising, so I reached over and grabbed it.
Yep.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm a bit of an audiophile and a record collector, and I found this in my local record store, so I had to pick that up. Mama, let's talk about real quick where the library is and perhaps where it isn't.
I know what my son is leading to. The library's designated extrovert has a little bit of a bug in places where bugs should not necessarily travel about the difference between me and the big brother in Chicago. We could be considered older brother, younger sister. What is the more accurate definition of the differences and the similarities between the two of us is that big place in Chicago is very much our Smithsonian. It is where our stuff goes to be preserved for future generations. Whereas the Carter Johnson really acts as the Library of Congress. We're the place where you come when you want to put your hands on it. I'm the crazy old lady that walks around behind you, constantly yanking your wrists out of your back pocket and putting them on the books, because we are a library, not a museum. Major difference. Our end goal ultimately is probably the same, which is knowledge. And while my goal is to preserve it, it's to preserve it so that you can lay your hands on it. Because without holding it and touching it and feeling it and smelling it and feeling the vibrations of everyone who has held it before you, it's not real. It is something you understand intellectually, but it's nothing you have ever had an encounter with. And in order to stand strong on the path that has been created to this point, and to understand, as my grandmother would have said, you stand tall because you stand on the shoulders of giants. But there's an obligation that goes with that, because at some point, someone will be standing on your shoulders as well. And understanding that obligation means you have to understand more than just intellectually who it is whose shoulders you're standing on. So here, you kick your shoes off and you lay down at grandmom's on the rug with books piled up all around you. Here, you grab a cup of coffee and take 2 books over to the center, keep the coffee off the book, keep gum stains off the book. And yes, people have sex in the library all the time, not on the books. There are certain ground rules. And here you have an encounter with it. Here you're holding it and feeling it and reading it. Here in the library, it gets real. In Evansville, Indiana, you are now home. And it's funny, squirrel,
Quick one.
Tom Butts, the man who came in to be with us for 2 days and whose visit almost sent me into neurosis because I wanted everything to be perfect for him. Because my mentor, his late husband, would be seeing that library through Tom's eyes. And that was important to me because Tony DeBlas is one of the few men I ever called daddy. Tom is a realtor. And he said, okay, assuming you're not leaving Indiana, what is it you want? And I said, aside from the fact that I want the house next door and I want the lot across the street as a small community park, he said, why a house? Why not a building? And this past 2 years that the library has been opened, I've learned a lot from this. One of which is my generations are coming home. They are basically just coming home to grandmoms. Now, grandmom happens to be as kinky as old lamb's wool, but it's a very different feeling coming home and curling up on the floor, going to the kitchen, parking your stuff in the closet, grabbing a book off the shelf, flopping down in a chair, etc. The feeling is different than walking into even a beautiful old library. Is still somehow a commercial building versus just coming home. There's food in the fridge. There's water somewhere. The pots are in the kitchen. You're hungry, you're home, make it yourself. Don't get it on the books. And then just go right back to reading. And if you fall asleep, somebody will grab a blanket off one of the chairs, cover you, move the book out from under your head, put a pillow under there, and wake you up in the morning. Or if you're first up in the morning, you're the one that's making coffee. You're coming home. And I realized in thinking about designs, no matter how functional it is, it has to feel like home.
And it does feel like home. It does feel like grandma's.
And that has been an amazing learning curve for me. Watching the difference, even within myself, with going to a beautiful library or even going to our own archives up in Chicago and coming in, kicking off your shoes, knowing where everything is, going to the fridge, going to pick up a book, flopping down in a corner, making sure you got enough light. Even as we expand, and we have to, because remember what my workroom looked like? And I am eyeing the next door neighbor. No matter what, it has to feel like home.
Mama, we did have I'm sorry.
There are your differences.
We did have a pertinent question. You mentioned MSC. Is that MSC in Chicago?
No, that's Master Slave in DC.
In
it's
DC.
A Master Slave conference that Master Tainu puts on.
There was a question there when you were talking about MSC. We wanted to clarify which one.
Labor Day weekend, the Master Slave Conference in Washington, DC. And it's the largest one of its kind.
Well, we have reached probably what everybody was most waiting for is the questions. Now, Shar has been taking your questions as we went, and she is going to offer you the ability to answer the question yourself, or she can ask it for you. So if you don't want to ask it yourself, just say so, and she will read your question. Take it away, Shar.
I didn't write down anybody's name. I just wrote down the question.
Oh.
So I'm not sure how you're planning on doing that. I thought you were just going to open the floor.
Oh.
So how about I ask the question and whoever's it is unmutes and talks to Mama.
There you go.
Okay. The great question upon entry. how do I get more involved with the librarian collection?
The first part of that question would be geographically, where are you located? That's important to know whether or not you are close to an annex, you're close to the mothership. Because as far as I'm concerned, everybody needs to be able to prop their feet up on a chair and kick back and read. And you can do that at conferences. You can do that with the local annexes, and each annex has its own need. So the start of getting involved with the library is getting familiar with it in terms of what we collect, which is in and of itself a kind of eclectic, very difficult question to answer. How to go about finding it. Because if any of you are near good used bookstores, part of what you can do for me is keep an eye on those bookstores for little treasures. Finding people who need the energetic boost that the library provides. And those are actually relatively easy things to do from your own neighborhoods. Kicking this up a notch, and the eternal question of getting this online would be, do you have access to digitizing equipment? The fantasy is to get all of this one day online. That doesn't mean I don't want you coming here. It means that I know that for the next generation, it is incredibly important to be able to pull me up on a Kindle. I'd still rather you came here, but I get how important that is. And we are sitting on so many things that literally are one of 50, one of 20. Some are one of 2 in existence. That being able to digitize a lot of this is of immense importance. One of the librarians at Emory 10 years ago when I was at MSC, said you could keep my team busy for 10 years if you never added another book. That was 10 years ago. Now, admittedly, the scanners and copiers have gotten better. Another thing that you can do if you have any knowledge at all. Come here, baby boy. You coming in? Come sit down. And add to the crowd.
Down there.
Bring the chair over. Grab the chair. Come on over here.
We need at least one good boy grin. Otherwise, the night will not be complete. Sir, say something to the boy.
If I can add while Robbie is getting seated, find our YouTube channel. I shared the link earlier to the walkthrough video. Subscribe, comment, share the videos, and just share the word about the library in general. Help us raise awareness.
Now, another thing, there's my baby boy. Another thing that you can do, come here. Now you stay, I'll pull you over. All right. That's one way of doing it. There you go. Do not hit the knee.
No. Here we go.
Another thing that you can do that is incredibly helpful, if you are reading it, check and see if we have it. I need suggestions. I need, Mom, a brand new game just came out. As a matter of fact, give you an example of that. On one of my Kickstarter programs, a young man wanted backing for a game he called Punish Me, Daddy. It's a card game. He got just enough backers to do the first, I think, 500, of which the library has 2. I wrote him and said, I'm a 70-year-old woman who runs a human sexuality library. You're audacious. I like that. I bought this to keep it in the library. He thought I was joking until he Googled this. And then realized, wait, what, my card game is yeah.
I got one of those letters once.
Is here to be preserved, and one copy is here for my gamers to play.
That's Pandora.
Yep.
That's legit, folks. I got one of those letters 17 years ago.
That's Pandora. And so if you are playing it, if you are reading it, if you are writing it, if you are listening to recordings of it, if some group has come out with, because one of our annexes is just comics. If new comics are out, I need to know. If new role-playing games are out, we want them here. This is a living, breathing thing.
And don't forget the artists.
If libraries are not constantly added to, they become museums, and museums are stale and dead. I want to know that when I come back here again, this library is still rocking and rolling with shit I can't even begin to understand. But, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around Yowie. Hi, you got gay male porn written for 13-year-old girls by 13-year-old girls. But it's being read. I want it. We have the original 50 Shades when it was still Twilight fanfic. We have we have a copy that was downloaded for us. So another thing you can do is keep us informed. Stay on the Facebook group. Write us. I just saw a brand new fill in the blank. Do you have it? Or I have friends that are developing. Can you help them? There is a brand new artist in my area. Can you give them a boost? Or can you show their art? That's a privilege for us to find young artists and young photographers, to find young gamers, to find the next generation who is doing something grandmom doesn't know about. Tell us. They will help us by keeping us young and connected. We will help them by giving them an audience. That's another way you can help us. Do I want money? Yes. Is money good? Yes. Is the stuff better? Yes. Because I believe that we have been obedient to fate in terms of finding it, holding it in trust, showing it as we do. Because Robbie and I have been at this for almost 20 years together. The boy has been the wind beneath my wings. This is what fate decreed. Will fate make it happen? Yes. But if I ask you for money, you got the choice of sending me a $50 donation or finding that book I didn't know existed. You may be the only one who sees that book. Now, I don't mean this to denigrate it in any way, but somebody else will give me the $50. Somebody else may not find that treasure. And it's the treasures we as a collective have to preserve before those who want to burn it get a hold of it.
And I think Mama's
is a way you can help us.
I think Mama's given lots of examples of where donations would go. I think there's a laundry list of things she's mentioned tonight. You can imagine where donations might go. Intellectual, did that fulfill your question?
Yes. I wanted to say that the one thing that I have started to work on that you inspired me to do, Mama, was to write an anthology of my history in leather. So I could send that off to you guys along with the art that I've created.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Sweet. Hi, Robbie. I'm supposed to make you grin. Can I have a boy grin? Is your knee going? No, 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 no. No, no
Yeah.
grins tonight.
Not yet.
No grins. There we go. There it is. Okay. Shar, next question, please.
Pandora had a couple of them. Would you like to go ahead, Pandora?
Sure. Mom, you mentioned Judy is visiting,
Mhm.
and there may be folks who don't know who Judy is and don't know her significance in women's leather history and pioneering leather history.
You know, Pandora, the funny thing is, at my age, and even your experience level, because you're kissing what, 35 years?
26, I think.
You tend to not think about the importance of the people you came out with, because my twin is my twin. I'm the younger sibling, so I get to annoy her. It's in my contract. But Judy, my twin, is Judy Tolling McCarthy. Judy was not just the first IMSL. That's not even where her history begins.
International Miss Leather.
International Miss Leather, thank you. Judy worked with Jimmy Carter on the Equal Rights Amendment. Judy ran around the White House when most of you weren't even thought of. Judy is responsible for a lot of the money given to young mothers for, I think it's called CHIP, Insurance for Children. Judy worked with AIM, the American Indian Rights Movement. Judy worked with Shirley Chisholm. Judy worked with Gloria Steinem. Judy is as twisted as an old coat hanger. Judy is a world famous artist with paintings in museums all over the world. She is 70, depending on how you appraise it, she is 70% Apache, 7 or 8% Luku, 15% Black, and there's one other tribe shoved in there somewhere. And her paintings are predominantly Native American, but they are spirit paintings. And that is a very difficult thing to explain without being able to see one in person, because they are 3-dimensional in that the spirit of the things around her are also part of the painting. There are gemstones in her paintings. She has painted with pearl dust ground into her white paint. The barks of the trees are ground into her paintings. The medicine, as she puts it, that is so much a part of Earth, are all part of her paintings. She is also a sculptor, but it is her paintings that she's world renowned for. And they sell for anywhere from $30,000 to $75,000. But to me, she's just my twin. And I'm the annoying little sister that gets to poke the bear and take her on strolls down Amnesia Lane with men that we both loved. While I think about her contributions to this tribe as the first female co-chair of the National Leather Association, of her work in writing the statement of purpose for that group, of her lectures for Living in Leather, of her work with the leather homeless, of her work with vets. This could go on and on and on.
Dog rescues.
with
Say
animal rescues, as Robbie just said.
Hurricane Katrina, I remember quite a substantial amount of rescues after those hurricanes.
Yeah. But to me, she's my twin.
And she
Mama.
was really the face of leather in the March on Washington, right? With her landing strip sash.
We both did. With Judy, it was as title holder. With me, it was as mom and the lecturer and talking about the quilt. And the fact that to some extent, she was a cornerstone of the entire Pacific Northwest. And cultivating that group of strong next generation Leathermen and women whose genders to her didn't matter because leather was leather.
Mama, it's 11. Do you have a few extra minutes?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay, great. I'd like to try to get most of the questions if we can. Go ahead. You need to unmute.
We have a lovely, lovely new person with us, like brand spanking new. And she's feeling a little shy, so it's on me. What is a leather family? What does it entail, the structures and ideology?
Let's start with old school. If you were going back to the 70s, which is when I came out, a leather family began with the person who taught you. They were mom or dad, mentor, depending on how you related, they might have been big brother. And at some point, they deemed you ready to teach someone else. And now when I came out, that distance between your learning and the time your mentor turned you loose on the world because you were ready to teach was a leather generation. And that generation in my day was about 7 to 10 years. But my mentor or mentors, because I was privileged to have 5 of them technically, also taught other people who became your siblings. But as you went out into the world to love and teach others, they became effectively your children, your sons, who then went on to form their families. Some of them were leather, some of them were actually biological. One of the first great, oh my God, experiences I had was at a family party about 20 years ago. And a little one who was one of the Oklahoma kinklings had gone off and gotten married, and she'd been badly mistreated by her biological mother, badly. And married a wonderful man named Langdon and had her first son. And she came back for the family Christmas party, and she put this little bundle in my arms and said, "Mama, here's your grandson." And I held him and looked at him and I said, "Does your mother know?" And she said, "She does now." And I held this little thing and realized that that whole blood thing is bullshit. That's not fair. It's your starter family. If it's done well, it's how you learn how to love. But the universe, however you define it, gives you the choice to then choose one. To choose those you call brother or sister or son or daughter. And they go on to form families of their own. And the family just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Now that's how we did it. I kind of assume that even though it's an old, what would you youngins say, business model, I think it still works. Family is blood by accident. Family is family by choice. If I murdered someone at 2 o'clock in the morning, and once the knee is better, because the knee is a serious holdup, and I go, Robbie, I need a shovel and some lime. Before he asked what you did, he'd be in the car on the car phone and on the way to me while he's going, what the hell did you do? You know you're too old for this, and now I gotta hide a body. But that is family.
I get first dibs on the organs, though.
For any 3-letter agencies listening in, that's a hypothetical. All right. Folks, want to thank everybody for attending our first Librarian Speaks. The next one is scheduled for January 20th. I will put it up on FetLife the same as this one. One of the ways you can help us is spread the word. Help us have some more folks next time, and we'll get the word on the CJLC out. I would like to take this opportunity to ask if anybody has a question related to this evening. Please feel free to unmute and serve it up.
Go ahead, Kitty. That includes you.
Mama I love you. You're a topic of conversation on so many levels in many of my groups of people. One of my sisters is one of your friends, Slave Patricia. She gave me your book.
Have you read that?
Oh, I have not read it all. I've been really busy, but I'm working on it, and I'm reading this, and I'm looking at you. I'm thinking about what I read, and I'm looking at you, and I'm just like astonished. I'm so grateful.
I am putting this out now. And it's hard to believe that came out just about 25 years ago. One, don't do this at home, boys and girls. Two, my generation was very different. Not better or worse, good or bad, just different. We were making the paper, so to speak, that the testaments that you guys read are written on. We made a lot of mistakes, but we also operated by a very different set of rules. Not good or bad, just different. I kept a journal because I was ordered to, believe it or not. It was expected that if I could keep a diary, I had too much time on my hands. Because a diary is day to day. A journal is when the spirit moves you. Good, bad, or indifferent. As you can tell, I'm still alive, so the book does have a happy ending. There are a whole lot of things that are in there that by today's standards are somewhere between unsafe and did you lose your mind? And yet, I think the term you guys use now is to the right of the slash. Slaves, submissives, bottoms, boys, girls have all written and said, get out of my head, stop writing my life, or how did you know I was going through this? The other side is going, are you crazy, were you crazy, and have you found your sanity? Now, considering the gap between those two, because you could put a freight train through that.
Ma'am, I have to disagree with you. The other side is not saying that. The other side is saying, where can I get one? I know, I've asked them.
Oh,
Sorry, I had to. No.
So look at it as a history lesson, please, not a how-to. It is probably the only book ever written in this tribe that comes with its own warning. Don't try this at home, boys and girls. The times were very different. Since she has now outed herself, I can. When that book was published, Ren Jackson and I were at each other's throats. Ren Jackson is Mistress Muir. And when we do the rewrite, because some of the kids are now determined, God help me. See, this is what happens When you let your right, baby boy,
Okay.
stand up. Gently, do not bump the knee.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
Go get your meds, honey. Stretch your leg. It was delightful to have him beside me, even if only for a minute. My next generation, particularly my amanuensis and Pulse Tinsley, for those who know Pulse, have discovered that there are a lot of things hidden in this house, and in places nobody would think to look. So they found my photographs. I'm fucked. They found a lot of my old certificates and things like that. And then they went with a recording device and talked to Mir and got her side of some of these stories.
Awesome.
I can see my life flashing before me because they won't tell me what's on the tape. The intent, if they ever pull it off, and I've taken hands off and said, if you're going to do it, have at it. You know, I'm not going to be here forever. So thank God I probably won't be around when the true repercussions of this happens. They want to put it out with some photographs, some of the old certificates, and interviews from Mir and me.
You
So
totally
we
better
will
hope I
see.
never get a hold of that because it'll be out next week.
So we will see what happens with some of this, because in the last 3 years, and the book ends during Mir's and my relationship, some of those stories are awfully intimate in terms of leather, and some of them are just amazingly funny. For those who have ever seen or met Mir, there are times when that woman can be just delightfully oblivious to what's going on around her, because she still has no clue of how pretty she is, or of the fact that I watched a guy drive a golf cart straight into a telephone pole, flip the thing back on its end, and he was still looking at her. I watched bar fights happen over her. And I'm just laughing my ass off because she didn't see any of it. There's people fighting in there. Yes, they are, dear. Somebody just clocked their lover because they were looking at your backside.
She managed to snag an entire stack of money in an auction in the Netherlands, in a women in leather event, and the Americans kind of like hijacked the auction because of her smooth moves. It could happen, right?
Especially with Mir. Or the flip side of that is the fact that she raised $7,000 in one day for $6,200 actually for the men of Spanner, when that was a major law case. When she did it in 6.5 hours, it was more than they had raised in 8 weeks. I don't know why they're giving me money. Just keep getting it. Just don't think about it. Just keep getting the money. Here, get the money right over here, and just keep pulling it in. Hand it right over to Val Langmuir, who was the American representative for Spanner, so that they could raise money to take that case to the World Court, which they all
Just walk across the stage again, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
That was pretty much it. Yes. Have at it.
All right, Mama, we're gonna leave you to your evening.
We've
for-
got other
Oh.
hands over here.
Oh, we got another hand.
Tomorrow I meet a contractor, assuming I don't kill him. So, we might be hiding another body. But
Still kidding.
that's sweet.
I have a ton of questions. Well, not a ton, but I have another question. Most importantly, what are the books behind you?
Oh yeah, she didn't want to know that.
I
One
missed
of
that one.
them,
Sorry.
taken in no particular order, because I'm not sure what you can see.
If you would just point and read the title, Mama, I think that'll do it.
The top two are a book that came in last week on energy and BDSM by Steve Dugas. This one is Tony DeBlas's dissertation on the bats of Iran. Let's see now. This one is by John Loranius, who is the lawyer. For those of you who have never heard of the case of Nitke versus Ashcroft, John Loranius is a member of this tribe and fought the case of free speech, defending us all the way to the Supreme Court. Barbara Nitke, who is a world famous photographer and another member of this tribe, fought to force the Supreme Court to define the parameters of the internet. They lost the case on a technicality. John is a First Amendment lawyer and an excellent one, but he's also a literary geek and a bibliophile with a passion for 18th and 19th century writers. So his newest one is about to come out about Montague Summers, the guy that wrote the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Witch's Hammer. That one is about Roger Trope.
Mama, real quick, if somebody wanted to research that case, where would the case files be?
Well, see, what had happened was John is an old friend, and he asked whether or not I wanted all of his files. And yes came out of my mouth faster than I realized I'd actually said it.
Wow.
And he said, let me get them together. It'll take me about a year. 3 boxes of all of his files showed up here about 3 weeks ago,
And there is a video coming.
including his case notes, the depositions, all of his scribbles. Now, when we were talking about what can you do to help the library, my job as the crazed collector is to find it and secure it for this tribe so that it cannot be destroyed. But far greater minds than my own, because I will tell you what I'm good at and I will tell you what I'm bad at. I don't have a problem with that. Far greater minds than my own will come in here and archive and catalog this properly using meta-whoosies and data what's-its and all of the advanced words that I don't have a fucking clue about. My job is to secure it. Other generations and other people will come in here and fix it. So I have 3 file boxes of the notes from the lawyer who defended the case, including the amicus briefs of Nitke versus Ashcroft. So
Wow.
one of John's other books on trope, I have 5 of Tony's books down here. I have Rachel Noir's Girl Thoughts, which she wrote based on a class she took with Tony. I have 2 of Vince Andrews' books right here. The only reason I had 2, because I started with 4, is because Atlanta has come rolling in here once, and I'm not letting Cece near this corner. And so on. We even inherited 30, Shar, copies of Betty Dodson's video.
Yes, there were.
Now,
There were
for those
50
of
something.
you who don't know who Betty Dodson is,
There was almost
That's-
70 of them total.
that's a name you should Google. Betty, while jokingly considering herself the mother of masturbation, was also an incredible artist and the first woman in the 50s and 60s who dared to begin to teach women to love themselves. And this is how you do it. And we have copies of Betty's video, but it's still in video format. And worse yet, it's in PAL format, so it's European. But for those who can have the machinery to read it, we're going to be giving away copies of that video for a small donation to the library. We have a few, well, these are more things, some miscellaneous pins sent to us, a t-shirt from Fistfuckers Anonymous, another t-shirt from the original San Francisco Whip and Drill Team, and my Onyx patch, because I'm one of the original 8 pearls. And that logo will only ever be worn by the original 8.
Mama, is that something you could lift up and show the camera? They need to see how beautiful that patch is.
I designed this to represent just the 8 original pearls.
That
So
is the
we're
most
the
beautiful
only
back patch I've ever seen.
Mama, who are the
Yeah.
other 7?
Ever wear it. They all have their pearl names. Jill is actually the Genesis pearl. Jill is the first pearl. I'm the second. Queen Cougar from San Francisco is technically the third. Following that is Peter, or The Rock, who is Lady D, who she took us from a sisterhood of 8 to a sorority in terms of founding the Pearl organization. There is Lash, Donna Adams from Chicago, Goddess Lakshmi who is the baby Pearl, Goddess Lakshmi from Detroit, and Lady Coco, who is also an artist, who decided, I'm out of here. She now lives in Costa Rica. And the athletic pearl, and the one you hear from the least, is actually Stacey Thomas, who was the last Ms. NLA. She was at Ms. NLA 96, 97. So that's the 8 originals.
All right. And I will see Lady D tomorrow night. This weekend is her weekend.
She is The Rock versus me. I'm the GOP, Grand Old, which is also to my Republican upbringing.
All right, everybody. Mama, thank you very, very much. Everyone, please tell people that don't know about the Carter Johnson Librarian Collection. Please bring a friend to the January 20th Librarian Speaks. And we hope to see you then. Thank you all and have a great night.
Every month with Mama. Every month with Mama.
See what happens when you have kids? They get privileges. What can I tell you? See you all in the library.
Good night, everybody.